In this presentation, we are going to talk about some languages, and we'll talk about some curiosities about them. So, English. English is a West Germanic language that was first spoken in early medieval England, and now it's a global spoken language. It is an official language of almost 60 independent states. The most commonly spoken language in the United Kingdom, the United States, Canada, Australia, Ireland, and New Zealand.
Tem mais.
And a widely spoken language in countries in the Caribbean, like here somewhere. Africa, I think it's here. And South Asia, here. This I know. It's the third most common native language in the world, after Mandarin and Spanish. It is widely learned as a second language, and it is an official language of the United Nations, of the European Union, and of many global and regional international organizations. The earliest forms of English, a set of Anglo-Frisian dialects brought to Great Britain by Anglo-Saxon settlers in the 5th century, are called Old English. Middle English began in the late 11th century with the Norman conquest of England. Early Modern English began in the late 15th century with the introduction of printing press to London and the King James Bible, as well as the Great Voyage Shift. Through the worldwide influence of British Empire, modern English spread around the world from the 17th to mid-20th century through all types of printed and electronic media, as well as the emergence of United States as a global superpower. English has become the leading language of international discourse and most common in many regions and professional contexts such as science. Modern English has little affection compared with many other languages and relies on auxiliary verbs and other words from the expression of complex tenses, aspect and mood, as well as passive constructions, interrogatives, and some negation. Despite noticeable variation among the accents of dialects of English used in different countries and regions, in terms of phonetic and phonology, and sometimes also vocabulary, grammar and spelling. English speakers from all around the world are able to communicate with one another effectively. And these are some of the English words that were brought to Portuguese, like banana and jaguar.
Sorry, but I need to come to there. I will talk about Russian. Russian is a East Slavic language and is an official language in Russia, Belarus, and Kyrgyzstan. Other countries like Ukraine, Moldova, and Latvia speak Russian too, but it is an official language. It is the most geographically widespread language of Eurasia, and the most widely spoken of Slavic languages. It is also the largest native language in Europe, with 144 million native speakers. Language is one of the 6 languages one of 6 official languages of the United Nations. There is a table, a scoreboard, something like that, where is percentage of speakers Russian with of yeah. They have very famous writers, for example. Russian literature is very rich. They have very famous writers, for example, Alexander Pushkin, Nikolai Gogol, Vladimir Mayakovsky, and others. Russian distinguishes between consonant phonemes with palatal secondary articulation, and thus without, so-called soft and hard sounds. This distinction is found between pairs of almost all consonants, and is one of the most distinguished features of the language. Another important aspect is the reduction of unstressed vowels. Russian have some dialects like Arkhangelsk dialect, Olonets dialect, Smolensk dialect, and others. Russian is written using a Cyrillic alphabet. The Russian alphabet consists of 33 letters, 21 consonants, 10 vowels, and 2 silents. The following table gives their uppercase forms along with IPA vowels for which letters typical sound. Russian alphabet is a little bit different than ours. Just kidding, it's so much different. I want to bring assessors, but I wouldn't bring a Kalashnikov because teacher will kill me.
Now I'm going to talk about Portuguese. Portuguese, or in full, língua portuguesa, is a Romance language and solely official language of Portugal, Brazil, Mozambique, Angola, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, and São Tomé and Príncipe. And these are the countries that speak Portuguese. It also has a co-official language status with East Timor, Equatorial Guinea, and Macau. As a result of expansion during colonial times, a cultural presence of Portuguese and Portuguese Creole speakers are also found in Goa, Daman, and Diu in India. In Batticaloa, on the east coast of Sri Lanka, in the Indonesia island of Flores, and in the Malacca in Malaysia. Portuguese is part of the Ibero-Romance group that evolved with several dialects of Vulgar Latin in the medieval Kingdom of Galicia, with approximately 2015 to 2020 million native speakers and 2060 million total speakers. Portuguese is usually listed as the 5th most native spoken language in the world, the 3rd most spoken European language in the world in terms of native speakers, and a major language of South Hemisphere. It also has the most spoken language in South Africa, and the 2nd most spoken language in Latin America after the Spanish, and it is an official language of the European Union, Mercosur, and African Union. Spanish author Miguel de Cervantes once called the Portuguese the sweet and gracious language, and the Spanish playwright Lope de Vega referred it as the sweet, while the Brazilian writer Olavo Bilac poetically described it as a última flor do lácio inculta e bela, the last flower of Latium, rustic and beautiful. Portuguese is also termed the language of Camões, after one of the greatest literature figures in the Portuguese language, Luís Vaz Camões. In March 2006, the Museum of Portuguese Language, an interactive museum about the Portuguese language, was found in São Paulo, Brazil, the city with the greatest number of Portuguese speakers in the world. The museum was the first kind of the world, and this is the museum, the interactive museum.
Spanish. Spanish, Castilian, is a Romance language that originates in Castile region of Spain and today has hundreds of millions of native speakers across the world. Spanish is a part of the Ibero-Romance group of the language, which evolved from several dialects of Romance. Latin in Iberia after the collapse of the Eastern Roman Empire in the 5th century. Beginning in the early 16th century, Spanish has taken to the bones of the Spanish Empire, most notably to the Americas as well as territories in Africa, Oceania, and Faro. Where taught Spanish. From its beginning, Spanish vocabulary was influenced by its contacts with Basques, as well as by neighboring Ibero-Romance language. Spanish is one of the 6 languages of the United Nations, and it is used as an official language by European Union, the Organization of American States, and the Union of South American Nations. It estimates that more than 400 million people speak Spanish as a native language. There are an estimated 70 million Spanish speakers with native competence and 559 million Spanish speakers as their first or second language, including speakers with limited competence and more than 21 million students of Spanish as a foreign language. Spanish evolved from Vulgar Latin, which was brought to the Iberian Peninsula by the Romans during the Second Punic War. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. Anyone have questions?